Okay, looks like it's going to be the six of us. Welcome everybody. I'm sharing, I'm trying to share my screen. Are you seeing the first slide? Okay, great. My name is Hal Turner. My title is community and partner manager, but essentially I'm customer success. I'm here to make sure that everybody who needs information or assistance with OLI gets it and that they're successful. And so I run these sorts of demos every couple weeks. Today we're going to be talking about Echo authoring tool, which is the tool that we developed in-house to allow you to create or to customize OLI content. We generally keep these, this is not too big a group. We generally keep these pretty informal. So if there are any points during the conversation that you just want to stop me and ask a question, that's perfectly fine. I'm comfortable with that. No problem at all. The PowerPoint is really brief. We're just gonna talk today about what Echo is essentially. So Echo is a tool that enables you to, like I said, develop new courses or programs if you wanted to go that broad. You can customize existing OLI content in the WYSIWYG style editor. If you're familiar at all with WordPress, it's very much like WordPress where, excuse me, there are elements on a page that you can move up and down and nest within each other in order to create your pages or your assessments. It enables team-based collaboration, so you can have multiple people working on the same project. You can use any material you want. You can use OER, you can use OLI's material as your foundation, or you can bring in your own proprietary material. We encourage everybody who does work in OLI to make their things available as OER, but that is not a requirement. In Echo, you can build pretty much everything that you would have in a standard issue course. We have, you can create your pages and your assessments and your practice, your integrated practice. And if you have external tools that you would like to integrate into your course because the native OLI question types or assessment types are not sufficient, then we can enable you to do that. It allows you to take advantage of the skill map, which is what makes OLI so effective. We skill tag all of the interactions so that over time you can track which skills and the learning objectives that they're associated with the class is successful with, the ones that they're struggling with, or the ones that they are grasping. And that data also, the data that we use from those interactions is piped back into Echo so that you can make iterative improvements using a visualization tool to find places where the material could use some targeted improvements. So because OLI, the course delivery tool, is built on a foundation of student-centered measurable learning objectives and their skills, pages whose content aligns very strictly to those learning objectives, adding assessments on the page early and often, and using feedback in those assessments to address misconceptions. We have built those directly into Echo. So Echo is built to, it's purpose-built so that you can create effective OLI material and then use the data that you collect from student interactions for that iterative improvement. In OLI, you can start in a dark room. There's no pre-populated content except for just placeholder material. If you do need access to existing OLI materials, you need to reach out to us because we never created like a library picker. Instead, what we do is we clone a current project, like the OLI canon version of anything. We have some members here from GSU who did just that. They started with the OLI statistics material, and then we cloned it for them, and now they have their own separate instance that they are customizing. So that's an example of how this works. Lots of folks are doing that with biology and the languages, modern languages, French, Spanish, for instance. So in order to do that, you need to reach out to me or OLI help, and we will arrange to get those clones into your account in Echo. But that's it from the PowerPoint. Just wanted to give you a quick intro to how this works. Any questions so far? No?
Yes, I have a question. So when you say that you can create the room, you say start with a dark room, or I could contact you and you can get material in there. Mm-hmm. My question would be, if we are sharing, if there's 6 of us using an Echo room now, but we would like to break off and take the material that we're using, but have a separate room where we're working on our own stuff, so that, because now we're kind of 2 separate schools. Mm-hmm. Is that possible? Is that the same? Is that what you're talking about?
Absolutely. So in this particular case, are you talking about using the current downtown campus's instance and creating a perimeter campus instance?
Yes, so that we would have our own Echo, and that way the changes that we make don't affect their changes.
That's right. Okay. So that is the benefit of it. The detriment is that it's permanent. So if you wanted to share content, you would have to recreate it. There's no way to throw it over the fence. You would just have to.
Oh, we can't copy that course?
No. I mean, going forward, what that would mean is that you're on 2 different branches now.
Yes.
So if downtown created content that you wanted, we would have to manually insert it into your branch that has been cut off and is now isolated.
Okay. No, that's fine. That's what we wanted to do.
Okay. All right. Great. Mm-hmm. So afterward, we can talk about moving forward with that.
Okay. Great.
Sure.
All right, so I'm not in the Carnegie Mellon tribe. What is OER?
OER is Open Educational Resources.
Great.
So it's material that you are free to take yourself and remix and reuse any way that you like, as long as you put the same license on it that it's being presented with.
Great. So like Creative Commons.
Yeah, that's right.
Got it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, most of the OLI material is OER. That is not the case for everything. Some of it is proprietary. Excuse me, I'm getting over a really bad cold. Luckily, no COVID. Yeah, it's all available. All of the OER material that we have is available to you to use as a foundation for anything you'd like to do. So for those who are unfamiliar with the OLI platform, I wanted to give a brief presentation of our approach so that you can then see how that translates in the Echo environment. This is the syllabus page, which is the landing page of entry for both students and instructors. And instead of listing every page in the course, it lists out the structure of the course. So the units and the modules, along with the high stakes assessments that might be in the course. And if a schedule is applied, then the schedule is available over here. It would be overwhelming if it was just every page. So this is the structure that we've used. And for this demonstration, we have this is a real version of general chemistry. It's a little older. It's not the same version that is published currently, but it's essentially the same. But what we did is we put some fake students in here and ran through the questions in module 14 to generate some data. So I'll show you what the course itself looks like. Once you click the header for the module, then you get your list of pages along with all of the learning objectives that a student can expect to encounter on those pages. You'll note that the learning objectives are quite direct, and they use active verbs, and they are student-centered and measurable. That's so that the practice on the pages can be designed to measure whether students are meeting those objectives. So in this case, you're asking them to apply or identify or calculate. Those are all things that you can create practice to measure. We'll look at chemical reactions, mass and volume of solutions. And so this is a typical page in an OLI course. We've got the learning objective at the top. We dig right into instruction, and then as soon as possible, we try to get some interaction. So here we've got like an interactive slideshow where there's a worked example going on. And then right away, we're into the learning by doing. So a small piece of content, and then we're getting our hands dirty. This one in particular is just a drag and drop activity. It's not really a great illustration because there are many different permutations. For the feedback, I wanted to show you one that was a better example of how we design feedback. The feedback generally for questions is meant to be designed around common misconceptions. And in this case, the author knew what common mistakes students demonstrate when they're doing this calculation for the grams of carbon monoxide. And excuse me, for all of the answers, what she has done is she has addressed the misconception here in the feedback. So every time a student gets the answer wrong, we give a little bit of instruction about what it is, what kind of mistake they've made. And when they're right, we give a little reinforcement because it's possible that they just guessed. So what you want to do is you want to help them understand why it's correct. This is the learn by doing is generally we have two kinds of practice. We have learn by doing and did I get this? They are both technically identical. They both perform exactly the same way. They can both have hints. They can both have feedback, but semantically they are different in that learn by doing we tend to employ for more scaffolded introductory practice where you would encounter and deliver more hints. Maybe the delivery of the questions is much more tightly defined and they build on each other in a simpler, more logical way. Whereas a did I get this is more of a self-check. We tend to put them at the end of a piece of instruction to help the students determine whether they have understood the material that they've worked on elsewhere on the page. It's purely semantic. They function the same. So if you want to design them the same way, that's perfectly reasonable. But this is the common layout for a page. It's instruction, some sort of engaging interaction, practice. The instruction can be videos, it can be audio. That's really common, of course, in the language courses. In this case, we had a slideshow and a worked example. But the more engaging and interesting you can make it, the more attention you'll be able to keep, and then practice right away. So this is a typical page. Here's another learn by doing, and then a did I get this at the bottom. You'll notice that there are no hints designed in this did I get this, and also the feedback is a bit more is less instructive. It's really just giving them a direction on how to move forward. So any questions about how a typical page looks? Okay.
I have a question here. I saw, you showed the interactive, like a slideshow. Is that an embedded PowerPoint or something?
It is. That one, I believe, is, if it's not H5P, I believe it's Google Slides.
Oh, Google Slides, okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but we can find out when we get to that page because we're going to look at this page in Echo.
Okay, thank you.
But yeah, Echo enables you to embed HTML elements on a page and other elements, but we use this we use these embedded slideshows in this course. They're quite prevalent in the e-learning design principles course that Ken Katinger teaches. Excuse me, I'm gonna grab a
Sure. Yeah, in our like stats, you know, OLI, we don't have this component, but it's nice to have this, I think.
And let me jump to the last page in the module. So on the summary page, typically, we will have, of course, just an instructive summary, followed by 2 exercises. This is just, none of this is required, but this is something that OLI does. We have what's called the My Response, which is a metacognitive exercise. What it does is it rolls up all of the learning objectives in the course or in the module. Remember those 3 that I showed you at the beginning, and asks the students to evaluate their ability to perform questions on these learning objectives with or without support, and to rate their confidence on a Likert scale. And then this has 2 benefits. A benefit to you, you can see how confident the class feels because this is delivered to you in the learning dashboard. But more importantly, it helps the student take stock of their own knowledge and determine whether they're ready to move forward, because following this is the quiz. If they realize that they're not ready, then they should, they should be seeking help. They should be getting more practice. They should be reaching out to you or your TA. They should be, finding some form of remediation, working with you perhaps. This is a place to enter your questions. So we put open-ended questions. You can design these however you like for your own material. And then these are made available to you in the learning dashboard. And I'll show you something really cool later. Well, actually, I don't have to show you. I can just tell you. You can present all of the learning dashboard material to your class for discussion purposes with the names withheld, so that you can anonymize it. But it shows the students that their feedback leads to engagement. That maybe their fellow students might have the same concerns that they do, and they might feel more comfortable coming forward with their issues if they see that it might spark some class work. But so this is the My Response activity. We put these at the end of all of our modules, and then there's a quiz, and the quiz is standard issue. There's a terms page that tells them about how much time they have and what will happen to how late submissions are treated and how many attempts they have, if multiple attempts are permitted, what the due date is, etc. And then when you jump in, it can be designed however you like. You can have multiple choice questions, which are the most common. You can have anything that you have in the practice, you can have in an assessment. So numerical input, text input, you can have open-ended responses that need an instructor to grade based on a rubric. Anything that you can do in the practice, you can do in the assessment. And then the student will submit their material at the end and receive a score and or their feedback based on the settings that you have determined. If you don't want them to have feedback immediately because there are multiple attempts, for instance, you can excuse me, you can have the platform withhold the feedback until the deadline has passed, for instance. So all of this is what the platform is designed to be able to do with you and your students, and then Echo is the place where you make that happen. So let's take a look first at that chemical reactions page.
And Hal, could you show us also, and maybe you just haven't gotten to it yet, what the student side of the gradebook looks like?
Sure, the student side is Gradebook. So let me preface that with yes, we have two record keeping locations. One is the Gradebook, where you have grades, you have their timestamps for their submissions, and you have a general a bar graph showing each student's participation in those modules. It's an estimate. The learning dashboard is the place where we deliver the information about their learning state. So are they grasping those learning objectives? And it's also where we make available the open-ended responses in those metacognitive exercises, as well as the reports for them. And the Gradebook, from a student perspective, is just a one entry Gradebook, just like this. So this is the full Gradebook, where all of the students are here on the left. But when you are looking at what's called the My Scores page, you see only yourself. It looks just like this, but it's just one entry.
Okay, thanks. I just wasn't sure if I knew what students were seeing, if there were things that I was seeing from my end that they couldn't see.
Very few. In the dashboard, you see things that they don't see. They don't see this because this is an aggregate view of how they are performing on the learning objectives.
But also they can't see the actual percentage on their objectives, can they? As they're reading and doing learn by doing.
They can see, so up in the hamburger menu, I believe where it says learning dashboard is a link when you're a student called available practice. And available practice takes you to a view that looks just like this. So what you have is you'll see your learning estimate and how you're doing, and then you have a key down here that shows what you have and have not done. It isn't a percentage. It is simply a list of things that you have or have not worked on.
Okay, no, I knew that, and I know that they can look at the blue box and estimate the percentage, but the student themselves cannot find their own percentage, can they?
No, I don't think that was ever designed into the system.
Okay.
This is an approach that was created in 2006, coming out of the research, and we're now literally working on the next generation and a lot more information about participation, both information presented to the instructor and presented to the student, is being designed into that platform.
Okay.
Back then, it wasn't as important.
I have a question regarding the checkpoints. So you see the checkpoints has, offers like 50 attempts, right? But the thing is, so, if the student wants to improve their score, so which means if they start another attempt, so they have to go through, every single problem again. So let's say there are 10 problems. So they have to redo all 10 problems. So is there, is it on our agenda to kind of like change this, like, offer multiple tries on the ones they did wrong?
We have taken that feedback. We've gotten that feedback from Leslie and Wei and Donald.
Okay.
And we have it in our feature requests for Taurus, the new platform. So we'll let you know if that makes its way in. We do recognize that, especially with that's why they designed those to be broken up into 10 questions a piece. They used to be 30 or 100 questions.
Oh, okay.
And then every time they got one or two wrong, they had to, if they wanted to improve their
Yeah,
score,
yeah,
they had to do the whole
it
thing
kind
again.
of discourage the student to go back and you know, try to improve their grades.
Yeah, we this is the kind of feedback that's really valuable, because we didn't, that use case was not envisioned initially. We weren't envisioning people using this as a practice tool where they could make 50 or 100 attempts available. It was an assessment tool where there were 3 attempts, you know? Having that kind of flexibility is really important. So we're taking that feedback into account, and we'll let you know how that goes.
Good.
So thanks.
Thank you.
So let's take a look at, I don't think that's the page. Maybe they changed it. Is this the page? Uh-oh, I think I may have timed out. Let's go back in. Okay, so we are in reaction stoichiometry, mass and volume of solution. I think, yeah, I changed the page as part of a demonstration. That's why this is here. So the page that we're looking at now in Echo is this page that we that we viewed earlier. So you can see we've got the learning objective at the top. We've got text on the page, followed by an example, and then that interactive example. And we've got a couple formulas here. And that's what the page looks like. I have added this and then not published it. This is an image that I inserted. This was a video that I inserted. And then we see the formula and the text about the approach used previously, and that image of the worked example. And all of that is this material here. And then here is our embedded, it's H5P. So it looks like Sandy, the author, went to H5P, created an interactive slideshow with 5 panels, and then exported the HTML, which she has then, or you know, she used the, she must have gotten I'm not familiar with H5P and how it works, but it looks like there's a sharing URL or an embed URL that she was able to use, and she's put that into the course. Now, the drawback is that while this is easy, it is not collecting any data. This is an external tool that you can't skill tag. So as if you design materials outside of OLI, you can't necessarily know whether they're having any instructional effect, benefit, because the interactions aren't being recorded. If then what you do is design questions to, you know, in OLI that follow it, that are meant to elicit evidence of their learning, that's what we would recommend. So that way you can skill tag the OLI questions. So the interaction can be in this H5P window, but then the questions you want to ask are native OLI questions that you can skill tag and get data about. Does that make sense? So this is what the, you know, a typical page looks like if you were to adopt what, you know, existing materials and you wanted to add new material to a page. What you would do is you would select the element after which you want the new material to appear. So let's say we wanted to add a little bit more material after the last assessment on the page. This is the learn by doing and the did I get this that I showed you at the end of the page. Let's add a little bit more text. And then I'm interested in one more image, periodic table. And let's see, 1280 is a bit wide, so we're going to bring that down to 800 pixels. And then I have one more learn by doing that I created that I want to add after this. I already created it, so I'm just going to insert it on the page. And so instead of create a formative assessment, I'm going to insert a formative assessment. And let's see, hopefully I have, yeah, new. I have one that's called new formative assessment. And I'll go with the newest exercise. This is one that I created earlier. And now when I go up here to the preview button, I can look at my changes. All right, so video and the picture that I added earlier in another demo. Here are the last two learn by doing and did I get this exercises on the page that we just saw. And then the text and the picture and the learn by doing that I added. And just like that, you can see how quickly you can author and update a page and view it. Any questions about how that happened? We don't typically go over every element up in the ribbon during the orientation. You know, those are the kinds of things that you get to know through using it. But what we have up here are, you know, element insertion tools. So text, tables, images, YouTube videos. We do recommend you host videos on YouTube because they're much more reliable than OLI will ever be at you know, like video technology. And you can also track views and add captions and, you know, rich descriptions and have really strong player controls. So we always guide folks to YouTube. You can insert audio, insert a web page, which is how you embed HTML or some form of iframe. OLI hosted video if it's something that you absolutely can't or don't want to put on YouTube. Most of this stuff down here is legacy technology that is added here so that people who had these in their courses previously can access them here in Echo, but for the most part, these don't get added anymore. You take care of these technologies through HTML now. You can insert specially formatted text like code blocks or quotes, a formula, a figure, and these other items in the list. You can have ordered and unordered lists. Learning is where you add assessments or other you know, practice items. So we have surveys, we have formative assessments, we have summative assessments, we have REPL activities, which are items that allow you to assess whether your computer code is valid. Layout gives you the ability to do a little bit of management with the page, and advanced is variable command content and command, which are mostly like I'm sorry. Variable content is a side-by-side layout that's really the legacy version of side-by-side layout back from the mid-2000s. And command is one of those tools that allows you to trigger videos to start and stop on command. So if you we use that in language courses quite often, where you'll play a snippet and it plays for 3 seconds, and then you ask a question. What are they discussing? And it stops there, so you don't have to restart the you don't have to cut your material into 30 different pieces to ask 30 different questions. You can just force it to stop there and deliver a question. And then when they press play, it picks up and it plays for a prescribed amount of time, and then it asks the next question. These are the manipulation tools. They will change based on what you have active. So as you click the handle for any of the items, you'll see that the bar is responsive and gives you information about what you can manipulate. And you can move it up and down the page, or you can remove it. You can copy and or cut it and move it to another resource. And then over here on the right-hand side is the details panel. So this again is it is the list of the manipulable elements associated with any of the items that you're looking at. So this is YouTube video, and you can change its size, you can change where it points. The text has no advanced features. If you have an inline assessment and you chose the wrong one, then you can go and choose the right one from the list. You can change its purpose. So it was a learn by doing. I wanted to make it a did I get this? That sort of thing. So that's the basics of a page. Up here is the learning objective. When you're ready to add learning objectives, all you do is click into the box and choose the ones that already exist from the list. That implies that they have to exist first, which they do. You create objectives here on the learning objectives page. It's just a list. So learning objectives are just text. That's all they are. So as I explained earlier, they tend to be active verbs, and they are student-centered and measurable. So apply, describe, identify, etc. And then inside of each of these, we have the skills. The skills are what you attach to your questions. So a question can be measuring one or more skills, but the benefit is that if you have multiple skills, or I'm sorry, multiple questions on a skill, the more the class works through it, the more you have an understanding of their learning state. So you can see here, we have a sort of audit tool. This calculate the mass. Here, let's click on rename so we can read the whole thing. The calculate the mass of substance involved in a chemical reaction. Okay, so this skill is attached to a question in all of these formative locations, all of these practice, and then this one is a summative. It's an actual test question. And as you slide down here, you can see all the different places where it's linked. And this gives you an idea of your coverage. You can determine whether you have enough practice to generate both the knowledge for the students, but also generate the data for your understanding of whether they are meeting those learning objectives. This is what makes OLI different from other tools. We have embedded practice with the immediate feedback. That's incredibly important, but skill tagging enables you to monitor the learning, but also find holes in the instruction over time. So this enables you to use the iterative improvement tools, because as students work through the material, you can see where they're struggling the most and then adjust that material. I will show you what that looks like. So this is the Computing at Carnegie Mellon course. This is a course that every student has to take at CMU. They all go through generally in their freshman year. And it's about how to use the library system, how to use the computer network, the importance of not cheating, things of that nature. We're looking at the library module, and I'm here on what I've done is I've clicked module 11 and I'm looking at the analytics tab. What I did earlier was generated a data set that looked through thousands of students worth of data, and it pulled it in. And when I click on one of the learning objectives in module 11, I can see the skill that's associated and the questions. And what we get is metrics on student performance. So over here, there have been 1,598 students who have attempted this question. The relative difficulty of the question is very, very low. So this is an easy question. Eventually, everybody who answers it works through until they get it correct. They don't just leave it wrong and move on. They get it correct eventually. And 96% of the time, they get it right on the first try. Now, this next one, about the same number of students, just a few fewer, but it's much more difficult. The relative difficulty is much higher here. Eventually 97% get it correct, but on the first try, only 11% get it correct. Why? This is not a silver bullet. It doesn't tell you exactly what action to take. What it does is it points to some sort of problem that you need to address. Maybe there's a problem in the instruction. Maybe this is too difficult a question too early. Maybe it's poorly formed. You know, maybe it isn't a clear question. But what this does is it points to a flaw in the course that you need to address. As the expert, you'll be able to dig in and probably find out pretty quickly what the problem is. In this case, I really don't know what it is. It might be by design. Sometimes you design questions that are hard early and you expect the students to get them wrong.
So where this data is, you know, come from? Is it collected from one section or one semester?
No, it's collected from, I forget the number, but it could, I believe it's up to 5,000 students worth of students that have worked in this version. So,
so if we want to collect data like this,
yes.
And so what do we do? Because, you know, yeah, like every semester we teach the same, you know, 1401, and we want, like, let's see, 2 years of data or 3 years of data. Do we get it from, can we get it from here?
You can, if the questions are skill tagged.
Okay, skill tag.
Right, so on the objectives page, remember we looked at what the learning objectives were and what their component skills are. So this, determine whether full text resources are available and find them if they are, is linked on 2 pages, and it has 3 skills. And we can see the coverage of they will be delivered 5, 4, and 4 questions on each of these skills. Now, that doesn't mean necessarily that they're going to get 13 different questions. They may get several questions that assess all 3 or multiple skills at the same time. But the assessment of these skills takes place 13 times. That doesn't, you know, it may be only a handful of questions though. It looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 questions covers this many skills. This many assessments. The basket is meant to imply that they are in a bundle. They're in a group. We've had trouble with the icons here, but they're in a question pool. So when we put a pool there, it didn't make sense. People didn't understand that we were. So, but this means that it's in a basket with others. So these skills are being linked to questions in all of these activities and all of these questions in these pools. In order for the data analytics the iterative improvement analytics to work, the actual questions have to be tagged. Otherwise, we have no idea what students are doing. Let me show you what that looks like. So where is, oh, I'm in the wrong course. I want to go back to chemistry. Okay, so we were in reaction stoic. Let's look at the exercises on this page. We looked closely at not the drag and drop, but this one. Calculating mass. This was where I showed you that the multiple choice question had, it has a question stem, and there was a formula followed by choices. So this is the correct answer, and this was her feedback, and it has a formula in it. Remember, that was the reinforcing feedback. And then she had 3 answers that represent misconceptions. They were all wrong, and she addressed the misconceptions in the feedback. Okay, remember that? Up here, she has attached 1 skill to this question, and it is calculate the mass of substance involved in a chemical reaction. That's what this question gets at. If it got at more than 1, she could attach those all here. But this is where your subject matter expertise comes in. You got to know, what you're getting at here. And then as students answer more and more questions on calculating the mass of substance involved in a chemical reaction, we build a picture of what they do and do not know. So, after 3-4 questions, we start to get an idea. After 6, 7, 8 questions, we know a lot more. And as the entire class does 8 questions, then we know a ton about how the whole class on the whole is performing. And that's where this data becomes so powerful. We were back on the analytics page. So 1,500 students suddenly, are giving you a lot of meaningful data. And this helps you dig in between semesters and have, the ability to really target your work, so that you don't have to just hope that you know where you need to tweak. This gives you a really good idea of where to focus. So, any questions about what we've gone through so far? Got about 10 minutes left.
So the formulas you showed, do we have to use LaTeX to do that?
Yeah, LaTeX or MathML at the moment. I believe that there's going to be so the easiest way to do that is to use a LaTeX or MathML tool external to OLI, and then just generate the MathML and put it on the page. We do not have a formula editor, but I believe that they're putting one into Taurus, the next generation platform. So that'll just have a native tool.
For example, generate the LaTeX code from sort of like an online editor, just paste the code here. That will work, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yep. So the only difference between questions in the practice, the formative assessments, and questions in the summative assessments is the ability to pool. Right now, we don't have, I don't know why the architecture doesn't support it, but we only permit pools of questions in the summatives, in the scored exams. Where am I going here? So here on the details page of the overview, I'm sorry, not the details page. On the overview page, we have a details tab where you can change your title and your description and your team. There's a workflow tab. I'll talk about this in a minute. Analytics is where you generate that data set. Excuse me, I'm really sorry about all the coughing. Resources is the tab I was going to now. Resources is where you see the list of everything in the course. And this is where things get a little bit complicated. And I want to be really clear about how this works. Think of this as a project, not a single course, but it is all of the material that you could include in any number of flavors of courses. So imagine you have a standard course, and for argument's sake, we're going to say it's statistics. It's elementary statistics. But you also have one that you run in the summer for just 8 weeks. Okay. And then you also have one that is more remedial. Okay. It uses maybe 85% of the material, but it has different exams and different examples. Okay. You have a different population of students that it's for. What you do for those is they're all part of the same project, but each of those different flavors is called an organization. It's like the scope and sequence. It's just your map of the course. So if you had your full course over here for 16 weeks, 13 weeks, you could then duplicate it and just cut out everything that you want in just the 8-week course. Everything that's still there is still the same stuff that's in the 13-week course. There's just less of it. Does that make sense? You've removed, let's say you remove the last 2 modules of each of these because you don't cover those in the 8-week version. But all of the stuff that's in module 12, all the stuff that's in module 11, it's identical in both of those courses. They both point to the same thing. 8-week and 13-week both have the same pages. This is just one page, but it's in both places. So if you make an edit to one, it appears in both. That edit appears in both places. Is everybody with me? Is anybody not with me? I should ask that. So then, anything that needs to be unique, you have to create uniquely. Okay. So let's say that you wanted an introduction page for the 8-week. That's different from the intro page from the 13-week. What you would do is you would duplicate the page over here. Okay. And now you have a brand new page that's a duplicate. And when you edit it, those edits don't appear anywhere else because it's its own thing. And then you can take that duplicate and replace the page that you just created. So we start with the pre-assessment responsible computing. Okay. I don't want this page. I want to change what it says here, but I don't want that to affect the 13-week version. Okay. So this one is responsible computing 13-week. I'm going to duplicate this. Now I'm in the 13-week, I'm in the copy, and I'm actually going to change it to the 8-week. Okay. This doesn't appear anywhere. It's not in any courses yet. All it is just a page that's in my project. It's not in any courses. I haven't added it to an organization yet. Is that unclear? So now I'm going to change the language, and it's going to say everything I want to say to the 8-week students. And this, because we are in a unique document, does not appear in the 13-week version. But over here, I still have the 13-week page. I have to replace it. So now I've got this I've got this page. It's different from before. Okay. It has the everything I want to say to 8-week students. What I'm going to do is I'm going to swap out the old one and add the one that I just created. See, now I've got my 8-week one here. And anywhere that the 13-week page appears in an organization, it has its own content. And anywhere that the 8-week appears, it has its own content. Is any of that confusing? It is? I'm sorry, Cindy.
No, it's okay. It won't sink in totally right this minute, but I get it. I understand the concept. I just have to run through the steps one more time later.
So basically, we can build a kind of like a library of like pages,
Yes,
right?
that's exactly
and these
right.
pages can be very similar, and then you can, can come from the same sort of like template, but you can make changes to fit, like 13-week or 8-week or different population of students, right?
Intro to bio for majors, intro to bio for non-majors. Let's say they share the vast majority of content, but then there's extra practice in the 4 majors, and there's a few more complicated examples, and anywhere that appears, you need to make a unique copy of that. And you put the unique copy in the 4 majors organization, and you put the unique copy of the other stuff that isn't going to be there in the other organization, the one that's for non-majors.
So if we were going to create a support class to go along with our statistics, would you suggest using this procedure? Am I getting this right? Or would you start over and do a different course? Because we were talking about taking an existing statistics course as it is and going through every single chapter and just, making it fit a support class. Changing it obviously enough, but just being able to walk through it.
If you're using the same material, just updating it, then I would say, start with the existing material and just change it to suit your needs.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we just need one ECHO account, right, to build these different courses?
Per person. Yeah, each person needs an account. This is essentially a package. It's a project inside of which multiple people can work.
But this project basically can include multiple courses, right? For example, the CoREC for stats. I can also build one maybe for quantitative reasoning or algebra, right? It's all within the same account.
If you built one for those are different. Those would be different projects.
Or different projects. So
because they're not sharing.
ECHO.
They're not sharing the same content, right?
Yeah, pretty much no. Yeah.
Right. So each of those is represented by a different project.
Oh.
And your account would be you would be a team member on all of those projects.
Okay. But the CoREC can be here.
Yes, it can be. I don't know enough to say that that's how it should be structured, because I don't know what you're planning to put in it. If the CoREC course has if it uses your elementary statistics material as the foundation, then yes, that's what I would recommend. If the CoREC is built from the ground up with new material that doesn't already exist in ECHO, then it should be its own project.
Hal, I'm going to have to go, but I just want to thank you. This was terrific. Really appreciate it.
Great. I'm very happy to hear that. I'm always available for follow-ups, so please do reach out.
Fantastic.
Okay.
Thanks so much. Bye now.
Yeah, thank you. So the last thing I should point out is workflow, everybody. As you go through the process, you can do page views. You can preview your pages, but not everything can be viewed in a page preview. The page preview doesn't allow you to view things that are linked, and an assessment is always is a linked object. Remember how we looked at the pages, and they're here as an element on the page. When a student actually clicks that, it opens in a new tab, and this page preview doesn't enable that. So in order to review your checkpoints and quizzes, you need to actually do a full course preview. What that does is, it takes some time, so I'm not going to do that here, but it opens up the course in a new tab, and it builds it from scratch. Again, 2006 architecture, it takes a while sometimes. I'm very sorry about that. It's technologically intensive. So I recommend you only do it once or twice a day, just because you'll get frustrated if you try to do it every 10 minutes. Do most of your previewing with the page preview if you can, but anything that you can't preview with a page preview has to be previewed with the preview course. And that just builds a full version that you can then walk through. And that includes testing out the scored assessments. The workflow itself is you're going to be using preview course to spot, to check and do your own quality assurance during the development process. But then once you're finished, we do what's called QA, quality assurance, which means we actually take your material and we publish it onto a separate server called the QA server. We give you, we have you set up a new account there. It is a mirror technologically of the production server so that you can test everything that you've done in a reliable place. This preview course button takes you to a development server where we may be testing technologies associated with other courses that, for whatever reason, might interfere with the delivery. Maybe we're testing out new themes, the look and feel. Maybe we're testing out new ways of adjusting to old technologies like Flash, who knows? We don't want that development environment to affect your QA process. So we move you to QA. That makes sense? We take your material and we put it in a separate place that you need to log into and view your course in the same way that you would when you're delivering it to students. It's a mirror of production. As you are going through QA, you come back to Echo to make your adjustments. They will not appear in QA immediately. That's just because they're separate environments. You make your changes in Echo, you can continue with the normal development process of checking your pages or using your preview course. But what you do in Echo does not change what you see on QA until we redeploy. If you need a redeploy, most people don't. If you need a redeploy, we will set you up with a fresh copy on QA. But most people don't need it because they, once they go to QA, they're generally only finding like typos and broken links and things like that, minor stuff that you don't really need a full QA cycle to go through. Does that make sense? So the workflow is, once you're finished with your full, the course is ready to be used with students. We put it on the QA server so you can test it, make sure everything is behaving and looking the way you expect. You make your tweaks in Echo, and then we push you to production. Once you give us the green light, and all of those at the different stages have buttons that will adjust to your stage. And so when you're in QA, there'll be a request production is here. There's already a request production here because this is in production. But that's what the workflow is like. Any questions about that?
Do we have to request that QA account? I think I already probably have one, but I kind of
You
forgot.
probably do. It's just yes, you do have to have your own QA account. It's I understand the frustration with having to have multiple accounts, and I'm very sorry, but that is the process. Every server that we have, you have to have a separate account for. And when you do go to QA, we will ask you to create a QA account if you don't already have one, but that's just a one-time thing. So much junk, so many junk phone calls. So that's the that's everything in the overview. This is like most tools where an orientation can only get you so far. It's once you dig in on your own that you start seeing where the real questions are. So that's what I suggest is the next step. So if anybody needs some OLI material, please reach out to me. If you need assistance with getting Echo to do what you want, and you will, reach out. Let me know how I can help. We hold these Echo orientations every 4 weeks. In the interstitial time we do the platform. So you know, the delivery side. So this is the authoring side. In 2 weeks, we'll do a delivery side. So feel free to sign up for those if you want, or recommend others to sign up. But that's it. And I will make this available on our website, on the YouTube channel, the recording, and you'll be able to refer back to it if you need. But please do feel free to follow up with me directly.
Thank you.
Susanna or Sarah, either of you have any questions? Appreciate you being here.
Yeah, this was really helpful, Hal. Yeah, great introduction. I haven't gotten into the system yet, so this is a good place to start.
Okay, well, let me know if there's any foundational OLI material you need, you know, a clone of.
Okay.
No questions here, Helen. Thank you very much.
Very welcome. Okay, everybody. Thanks a lot.
And Hong, do you want to talk?